We're going to jump into the first session of the day without any more waiting. In our first panel discussion, the Futurist CEO, Anticipating Trends and Disruptive Technologies, our panelists will unravel how today's CEOs are not just leaders, but visionaries who can predict the wave of change. They navigate through emerging trends and harness disruptive technologies, ensuring their companies not only survive, but thrive in the future. It's all about foresight, innovation, and daring to lead from the front. So stay tuned as we dive deep into the strategies that make a CEO truly futurist. To explore this further, let's welcome on stage our moderator, Alan Leroy, Futurist CEO of Fourth Strategies, and our panelists. Let's welcome them up. Thank you so much.
Good day. I welcome my esteemed panelists. If everyone could come up, please. Jeff, Gary, Jasmine, Jeff, and Jeff. We have 3 Jeffs today. Thank you. So it's an honor to be here. We have 50 minutes, it's 6 people, and we want Q&A. I'm really excited that you guys are here the day after St. Patrick's Day in Vegas. I mean, it's incredible. So let's jump right in. So my name is Alan Leroy. I came here, I'm from New York, and I flew in yesterday with my beautiful wife, Dina. And today's topic is very timely. The Futurist CEO, Anticipating Trends and Disruptive Technologies. In today's age, with everything happening in the world and with businesses, we have a very distinguished group of panelists today. And we're going to start by just asking each of them to introduce themselves. Jeff.
Thank you, Alan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Bowman, one of the 3 Jeffs on the panel. I'm the CEO of the AIMS Institute and co-founder of the AIMS approach. AIMS stands for Appreciative Inquiry as a Management System. Really, we help leaders and organizations drive strategic and operational change, what we call in the modern era. I'm really excited to be here. Just a little bit about me personally. I've got my pride and joy are my 3 daughters. My wife got us a female dog. She got us a female cat. And then they felt bad for me, and so they got a male cat, but the male cat doesn't like me. And I think it was just their trick to get another pet, so no more of that. Thank you, everybody. Excited to be here.
Gary.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Young. I'm CEO of Avella Corporation, and we have offices in Shanghai, Ho Chi Minh City, Phnom Penh, and I have a rep in India, and we buy things on behalf of our clients by the container. So we're out there where they really make things and do things, and we solve problems. And honestly, we make our clients wealthy. That's what we do.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name is Jasmine Matapali. I am the founder of the Data Love Co., where data meets heart. I'm an Army veteran, and I also currently serve on the Colorado Board of Veterans Affairs and the Colorado Minority Business Office Advisory Council. Super happy to be here today, and thank you all for coming the day after St. Patty's Day.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey. I'm the CEO of The Everlasting, and I'm also the talent of my company. I'm a solopreneur, and I'm a writer, podcaster who is now coming out of his shell to get an audience. And I'm so excited to talk about the Internet 2.0, because this is what I've been writing about and thinking about for at least 14 years. So very excited to be here.
Hi, my name is Jeff Hoffman in Lake Allen. Some roots in New York. I'm living in Northern Virginia right now. I will say it's kind of still St. Patrick's Day, so I kind of dressed up. If you get a little tired, there's a roller coaster down the way at the New York Casino. Did it last night, and here we are. No, more seriously, 20 years retired military. like Jasmine, also in the military. I've been working national security in the cyberspace, emerging technology area. I just returned from the UK. I was working there for a few years for U.S. European Command, and I was the lead for cyber advising in a lot of the Ukraine flank countries in Europe, Eastern Europe. What I decided is I was on an advisory board for Cyber Intelligent Partners since 2017, and ownership was transferred to me in early January 2023. So we've been a tech startup. I'm happy to be returning here from Education 2.0, where my company, CIP, was actually awarded for cyber and digital transformation solutions. And primarily, looking at some of the disruptive trends, cyber insurance is one of the biggest things for me right now. I've got a partner. I'm ready to stand up cyber SOC services. But there's these new policies, these new areas that people wouldn't have thought about maybe 5-6 years ago. In cyber insurance, just like earthquake insurance or flood insurance or hurricane insurance, I think that's a really big area. We'll get into more of the panel talks. I think we have some cultural discussions to have as well. And I'm going to highlight one headline from CNN this past March. And the headline was, "What is DEI? And why is it dividing America?" And that was on CNN. And it's fair to talk technology, but it's also fair that we have that conversation as well.
Right, and that's a great point, Jeff. With such a broad topic, where do we start? First, my name is Alan Leroy. As I mentioned before, my background is I started out in technology. I was a software engineer before the internet. And I've been in the industry for the last 25 years. So you talk about disruptive technologies. I saw internet. I was in college when the internet came out. I was a green screen, and I was a computer science major at Rochester Institute of Technology. I went straight into consulting at IBM, and I was basically an arms dealer for IBM, implementing all their advanced enterprise solutions, mobile computing when it first came out, when Nokia, remember Nokia? All those mobile apps that now appear on your phone, they had to start somewhere, and IBM provided the middleware for all that. I saw that happen. I was on a project to take Universal Music Group from wax records to digital music. We developed their digital music distribution gateway when Napster first came out. I was on a project to take a Japanese bank online. So you talk about disruptive, I've seen it. And where we are today, artificial intelligence, it's amazing. And we're gonna kick this session off. My company is Fourth Strategies. I created a growth agency for entrepreneurs because after 25 years of corporate America, I wanted to help the small to medium-sized business owner use the technology to transform communities. So that's my focus today in my life. My wife is here. I have a 7-year-old daughter. Her future, her best friend's gonna be a robot. So I'm very passionate about this topic, and the first question is, what are the potential impacts of the convergence of cultural shifts and disruptive technologies? And they call this era the fourth industrial revolution because of the way that technologies are changing and disrupting our lives. So that's our first question. What are the potential impacts and the convergence of cultural shifts and disruptive technologies in the fourth industrial revolution? And I'll ask Gary Young to kick that off.
Yeah, Alan, your history is interesting because, this whole thing started with the coders, and it's gone through all these different kinds of languages, and nowadays, English is going to be the language of coding, courtesy of AI. So we're going to be able to use our English. We don't have to be coders anymore to have practical use for computers. And so what that does is it just opens up all kinds of avenues for creativity. And as it relates to the CEO is all about making good decisions. And so those good decisions on who do you hire and people that are going to help you reach your goals. And the CEO, had a friend once that told me the job of a CEO is to break things. And what he means is we're always pushing 5 years out. We're always trying to get to the next level. We're always trying to increase our market share. And when we do that, we have systems that we end up breaking, and we need to create new systems. And in doing that, we're going to need help because anybody can break something. But to find the kind of talent that you're going to need in the future to help put things back together and help move things forward and hopefully make those transitions not as disruptive as they could be. I think we're talking about hiring good people and then nurturing those people and making sure that, and this is something Jasmine and I talked about, making sure they get the kind of training they need for your vision as the CEO. So you don't have to know this stuff at the level that the people you hire will, but you do have to provide that vision so you can move the company forward.
Great point.
That adaptability and scalability is so important. I think also, the social and ethical concerns. How many of you use GPT? Yeah, right? I mean, it's a pretty powerful tool. And when we think of AI and generative AI, really that is essentially a language model. And it's being trained on, all of the things going on. And that opens up things for bias, right? And so if, a language model is essentially saying, hey, what's the next best word? What's the next best thing? And if it's garbage in, garbage out. So if things are trained on, if any kind of model, AI or otherwise, is trained on something that is inherently biased or non-inclusive or isn't taken into account privacy concerns and things like that, then we run the risk of having, a lot of damage done. And I think we're seeing that a lot in many of the tech companies are, really standing up entire teams just to combat this issue. And so one of the things that I think a CEO can do is try to Gary's point, foresee some of those social and ethical concerns and build in a way that's adaptable and scalable for the future, but in an ethical and an inclusive way. So, technology, I think it's a powerful thing, but it also can be a dangerous thing if we don't continue to take that human-centric approach when it comes to technology implementation and integration, making sure that there's not, algorithmic bias or something like that going on.
Those are great points. And Jeff, I know you mentioned cultural shifts.
Yeah, I mentioned specifically DEI, and I can add on to this. A CEO needs to be a leader as well. You have your employees, you have your staff, everybody needs to be empowered. Inclusivity is important, but DEI has become a politically divisive program. And if you don't have a CEO who can be a leader to understand the difference between being influenced by outside external lobby forces, you see that with the politicians, we're going to lose out. And we're already seeing that in a global competitive environment. And I'll use China as an example, especially with artificial intelligence.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, I was at King's College doing some research. I wrote a paper on China's intent and plan for AI technologies. And the Google president of China actually quoted that data is the new oil and China is the new Saudi Arabia. So we really need to look at the balance of these, what I call identity politics, and becoming integrated into companies versus CEOs being leaders. And so when you there's a lot of benefit, especially with technology. And I'm going to highlight a Tianjin School of Engineering research that was just done. You mentioned the bias. This report identified that a lot of women who are on maternity leave have gaps, and they actually miss out on opportunities because they're using AI algorithms for hiring practices. And so they're not catching all of the experience in the background of those who have been on maternity leave. And that research actually just came out. So I wanted to highlight that point.
Actually, a point to that, in one of the webinars that I gave about artificial intelligence, there was actually a case study where a major corporation, I believe it could have been Amazon, used AI in their HR practices to hire. And they gave the resumes of all the senior leaders in the company. These folks did well. We need more people like this. They trained the machine. But it turns out that they happen to hire predominantly white males. So most of the senior executive staff were white males, and the machine learning algorithm caught that. And the resumes that were being recommended, they were wondering, how come there's not enough women or people of color? And they pulled the plug on that. That was probably 4 years ago, so they probably got better at it. But that's an example of garbage in, garbage out. And you know, as future business leaders, I think artificial intelligence, it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity, however, because what it's done is it's given tools out into the marketplace. You know, so for all of you that are senior leaders or have your own businesses, really truly understand how these technologies could accelerate your growth. Because if you're not doing it, your competitor is, right? So this beautiful forum here with our distinguished panels, I think is a good opportunity for us to really explore these disruptive technologies such as generative AI, artificial intelligence, augmented reality. Apple's new product, that's augmented reality. Their visor, you're walking into the world and it's layering on top of your reality, augmentation. I'm looking at a chair. That person is based on their face, that's their name, that's this building. I need directions to go across the street. That's what that visor's doing. It's augmented reality. So I'm gonna, go ahead.
I'd just like to jump in, and this was not scripted at all for me, bringing up the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think fundamentally, in my mind, and I've stayed quiet on this issue for quite some time now, what's missing most is our ability as leaders to create inclusion and belonging. And if we can't create inclusion and belonging, we have no chance for any diversity, equity, inclusion initiative to work in an organization. And so, the bias that we're talking about, we really have to look internally as leaders and say, what is it we value? What is it we're looking for? What are the systems? What are the processes that we're implementing in our organizations that create this bias? And the example of hiring, the gap that you talked about, right, Jeff, I think is really important. When we as leaders create job descriptions like we did in the past, in a day and age where the world is totally different than it was in the past, we're not valuing the real world experiences that people get each and every day. So what if instead of creating this job description and interviewing based on the set protocols that we had before, we actually got curious with people? We actually talked about what their experiences were. If you're a mother, what have you learned as a mother raising kids in this society that helps you adapt to change? Because change is the thing that's constant. Change is what we're really talking about here. The speed of change with these disruptive technologies requires us as leaders to challenge what we've always valued, right? And when we challenge that, we create an environment of inclusion and belonging. It's easy for me to say that, by the way. Create an environment of inclusion and belonging. You need an approach to do that. Right? You need an approach that allows people to come into a conversation where you genuinely ask questions and look for different answers than what you've heard before, where you actually listen to people, where they feel safe contributing. When we do that and implement a DEI initiative, then we have a chance for success.
Okay. So,
And Alan, if I could make one point on the DEI.
yeah.
For the audience, I'm not saying get rid of DEI. I'm not saying get rid of diversity, equity, or inclusion. I actually am questioning what's the difference between the terms and the meaning of it. But I'm going to give you an example. I'm also on an advisory board for Virginia Department of Education. And I've proposed that the politically divisive terminology of DEI be replaced with access. And we have a very high Hispanic population in Northern Virginia. They can't even get access to a computer lab to enhance their skill sets. And this is a perfect segue to talk about a Gartner project where they said by 2025, half of the cybersecurity incidents that happen are going to be because the lack of talent and the lack of workforce in the cyber environment. And so we need that balance, especially when you have kids. I have kids, K through 12, right? Math, reading, science, pretty basic. It used to be phonics, I think.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore. Now it's politics first, identity politics. Let's teach the kids identity politics. and then let's learn after that. And they offer no choice for parents outside of public institutes, classrooms, who don't have the funding or the means, especially in economically disadvantaged areas. So I'm saying we need to be mindful of this conversation in DEI program as an identity politics exploitation and tool versus the foundations of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Gary, you want to say?
I would rather pay millions of dollars for an independent commission for Congress to review and rewrite that thing versus millions of dollars to a company like Booz Allen Hamilton to do a bunch of consulting to create this DEI program that's going to go nowhere.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to both Jeff and Jeff. I have an office in Shanghai for 22 years.
Yeah.
So I've got some firsthand on-the-ground experience with the Chinese. And there's an opportunity here. A lot of people say, you take American jobs and stuff like that. I don't. This goes towards kind of the things that you're talking about. Taxation, litigation, and regulations take jobs away from Americans, not the Chinese. We start solving some of those problems, and AI can do that. We can start bringing those jobs back, take it from a person who works there. But more importantly, the opportunity here is that the Chinese are a homogeneous population. Their education system is all to think the same way. If we can get our act together diversity-wise and get more ideas in a richer environment for creativity, we can beat the Chinese. And I think that's a good segue for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the creativity piece. You lose with a homogenous team, you lose the ability to be innovative.
Right.
So a homogenous team, there's a bar that you're going to be able to reach, and that's it. That's as far as you go. But if you open the door for more diverse experiences, diverse schools of thought, for diverse backgrounds, then each person on that team or in that organization has a bar that they can reach. And this is where the leadership comes in. The leader who can unlock the potential by creating an environment of inclusion and belonging so that everybody has psychological safety to show up and do the best work of their lives, then that team, that organization is going to outperform the homogenous team 100% of the time. And I think one of the biggest gaps that we've seen that technology can probably help with is with hiring. What we see is in organizations like, oh, crap, we're not diverse enough. We need to hire more diverse people. And then they'll find a few very senior executives who have been able to slug it out and not say F this, flip the table, and walk away. And they get in there and they're like, okay, we're here. We've got senior executives. And they're like, we need to hire more people in that are more diverse and have more women, more people of color. And then you have these new folks, and then you have this almost barbell effect where in the middle you've got nobody you don't have enough middle managers that are capable of empowering diverse teams. And so what happens? The folks that have been hired in at the bottom they try to slug it out, but then it's like, oh, you're not capable, you're not competent.
Yeah.
And they fall off, and you've got nothing kind of tracking what's going on here, when really it's a systemic issue that you could have probably leveraged technology to understand the trends ahead of time and see what was happening and realize what the problem was as a leader. And I think that's a huge opportunity for empowering diverse teams, training diverse teams, ensuring that there's a path to progression for your people. And I think as you can tell, I'm very passionate
Right.
about this space.
So Futurist CEO, right? Anticipating future trends, and this is a trend: diversity, disruptive technologies. On the other side of this, I just would like to say that many of you, I believe, are business owners. Who here is a business owner? And another side of the equation, we tend to talk about this topic from the perspective of corporations hiring people in, but what about producing more business owners? What about producing more diverse set of businesses? What about producing businesses that naturally hire people they know? So if we had more minority businesses, more minority people may get hired into there. So I think that's another aspect of this. And how can we encourage, there's a statistic that only 1% of venture capital money went towards minority-owned businesses, I'm talking about specifically Black and brown businesses, right? Only 1%, and that has been a tradition, that has been a historic statistic for the last 10 years. So how can we encourage and produce more entrepreneurship? Because at the end of the day, you know the solutions for your own community better than anyone else, right? So how can we encourage that? So that's just a thought I'd like to put out there. We're about halfway through this panel. And let's flip to the second question, if you guys don't mind.
That one got a little spicy.
Yeah, it did get a little spicy.
Ooh.
But that is a big trend, these cultural shifts. And it's not only about DEI, it's also about sustainability, environment, mental health, remote work. These are all cultural shifts that are on the horizon. And disruptive technologies is a huge one. So our second question that we prepared for today is, how can entrepreneurs and senior leaders adapt to technological advancements and anticipated trends in the future of business? Jeffrey?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start here. So the Futurist CEO needs to be a lifelong learner.
Yep.
The next generation leader has to have a learning-based mindset. The rapid change that we're seeing with technology and cultural, just like what we were talking about here, it's observing these shifts and it's not seeing these necessarily as threats. They're facts. These trends are happening, and it's seeing that DEI isn't going anywhere, despite the politics side that's scared as heck out of it, DEI. That's why everybody's talking shit about DEI, because they're scared as hell out of it. Because it's not the D, it's the E, the equity part. That is what is a game changer of DEI. And that's why Elon Musk is scared as hell out of this and is always talking down about DEI. So it's the Futurist CEO sees these trends and has to be able to either swim with the current or to be able to take advantage of this and see DEI as a competitive advantage for your company in the future. It's looking at your workforce in 5-10 years and seeing their talent. It's a race for talent. It's not cutting costs necessarily or eliminating jobs, which is what big tech is trying to do with AI right now. That is a short-term trend that the Futurist CEO, me, laughs at. You want talented people on your team long-term, and you want them committed to your business. And that's what DEI, having a long-term strategic vision, can separate your company from your competitors.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Jeff, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I'll probably build on a couple things that have been said, Gary earlier and what Jeffrey said here. I think Gary mentioned creativity, right? Technology is changing exponentially. Technology is now doing the thinking for us. It's analyzing data that before it required humans to do it. So what we really need to be able to do as leaders is create an environment where creativity flourishes, where people are able to bring their full self, create ideas, and drive innovation at speed and at scale. And I'm talking daily, weekly, monthly, not in an annual event. And so as I think about what Jeffrey was saying is, how are we as leaders becoming lifelong learners, but also how are we giving access and opportunities for other people to develop as leaders of change, right? And I think if we take away this idea of you have to have a leadership title, how are we enabling people to go through programs where they're developing as individuals and how they relate to other people, how they collaborate with people, while in the act of driving a change that everybody can get excited about. And I think the reason we're not doing that is, honestly, it goes back to the question that we should all be asking is, all of this world we're working in has changed immensely, but how have our leadership practices changed or evolved? How have our management systems changed or evolved? There's a lot of great ones out there, but they're the foundation. They're not the principle in terms of how we need to lead and act as we move into the future, because we have to be able to bring people in, collaborate quickly, valuing different perspectives. And that perspective doesn't have to be just the people in your organization. It can be, suppliers, it can be customers, it can be students, right? How do we bring people into the conversations to create real innovation? I think for me, moving forward, we have to challenge those paradigms, and we really have to look at how we develop not only ourselves, but everybody else in the organizations that we have.
Let me ask you a question for anyone to answer. Recently, I had an opportunity to bring in a team of high school interns. And it seems that lately, there's been a lot more high school programs that are introducing much younger people, the opportunity to intern, be apprentices. On top of that, I've embraced ChatGPT, and which has honestly eliminated my need for probably 5 different people, right? Graphic designers, assistants with copywriting, video script editing. It's amazing. Your footprint of 1, if you're a solopreneur, you could do the work of 50, 100 people if you know what you want to do. And you understand the problem you're solving in your business. ChatGPT is this 24/7 assistant that doesn't talk back to you, that doesn't make you mad. Whenever you ask it a question, it's awake, it's gonna answer you. It's amazing. So when you combine these 2 things together, high school students looking for internships, amazing tools to hit that learning curve 10 times faster, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, this is game changing. You may not like the impact that you may be having on your existing staff, and that's the equation, right? The upskilling and the reskilling. So let me ask each of you, what impact has it had on your own personal lives as business owners and business leaders?
Yeah, I guess the thing for me is I'm a big proponent, as you probably heard, on bringing people into conversation to drive creativity. I'm also a big proponent of change. I've never been opposed to change, but I never had an approach that would enable me to bring people into conversation without it going sideways, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then when I found approaches that enabled me to do it, I saw what was possible. Jeff and I were talking actually right before the session, where you teach at NYU, I teach at the graduate level at a university up in Canada, and there's nobody from Western University here, right? I gotta say this. In the syllabus and everything else, you can't use ChatGPT, you can't use artificial intelligence. When I talk to the students in my classes, I say, I encourage you to use it. Right? We have to lean into this stuff. That's the world that we're working in. And if we say to students, you can't use that to help you do these things, we're not teaching them, and we're not equipping them for real life. So I'd much rather give them the opportunity to figure out how to use their creativity with the tools that are available to them and are exponentially changing. And I think the biggest takeaway for me as leaders is, how do we lean into it while really staying connected to what we are as human beings? How do we relate to one another as we use technology to do better economically, but also socially?
So human-centric solutions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's more personal because I make things. So everything in my world's physical. But so the question for me comes down to leadership and how does it affect me as a leader? And so I did some research, and I can't take credit for this, but it says in some of the podcasts I've been listening to that AI, a simple definition is a data set plus an algorithm gives you an outcome. And that's maybe an oversimplification. Maybe that might even offend AI professionals. But I think for our purposes, if you're just a CEO out there and you need to boil it down, I think that's a pretty good definition. And so this person went on to talk about how the data set for us is our subconscious, and how our algorithm is our belief system. And so our brain every day, we're always asking it questions, and we're getting either hallucinations, things that we want to believe, that we think will happen, or we're not getting creativity. We're getting the same old answer. And so for me, it's kind of opening up my mind and saying, look, if I want a different outcome, I either have to change my data set, which is my subconscious, or I have to change my belief system, which would be my algorithm, in order to get the outcome that I would like.
Right.
And so where I put that together is that AI is really modeling the mind, and changing one's mind is really difficult. But I think and making change inside the mind is difficult. But I think AI can help lead us there so much faster as leaders, as long as we engage in it. And it should be nice warm water for us, because it's really modeling our brain. So we should be comfortable with it once we take that journey, once we take that first step. And as far as what it does for me, it's mostly through imagery and through copywriting and kind of the stuff, Alan, that you talked about.
Right.
So I can get information out.
Well, what? What's interesting is that when you said the mind, you pointed up here. But
Yeah.
Are your memories in here? Like there's where are your memories? Like you walk around and something just pops in your head. Where did that come from? Can you explain where your thought came from? Should AI explain where it got its stuff? So it's like, how closely, when you really think about
That's
how
a big,
you
that's
get
a big
your
question.
how you get your ideas,
Yeah.
are they all stored in here? I don't know. Anyway, but we're getting closer to bridging that gap, I think, with the technology.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned human intelligence. I was a former military intelligence officer for the Army, and prior to starting my own venture, I was a VP of customer experience with a focus on customer intelligence. And I would say personally, because I'm a data scientist, so for me personally, this is like very true to what I do. And what I've noticed is, with the advancement of generative AI, it almost frees me up to be more creative.
Right.
And so, in my last year in the corporate world, when I was a VP of customer experience, we were able to build up, we have 3 patents pending for AI models that are specifically focused on customer health, on customer intelligence, and being able to get ahead of pain points and cut down on the data engineering load. And there was very novel, innovative stuff. But I think without the technology, I don't know that we would have been able to get there, because you're spending, I think the days of the data scientist or the coder sitting in the dark room and just has no creative or human, ability to interact with humans and explain their work and explain things in a way that resonates. I think those days are gone. I think that if you're going to be a technician, you also need to be a generalist. You also need to understand the environmental factors. You also need to be able to communicate to the decision maker in a way that resonates. And as coming from a military intelligence background, and I used to work hostage recovery, for God's sakes, the risk of being wrong there is really high. And so coming from that background, one of the things that set me apart as a data scientist through my career has been the ability to communicate in that way, in a way that resonates, in a way that drives decisions, like data-driven recommendations. And I think it's been a gap for a really long time with technicians. I'm sure you've seen this in the software engineering role, in that world, Alan. But I think those days are really going to have to, kind of move to the background. You need to be able to communicate in a way that resonates with impact.
One thing I've read is that it's shifting from, you don't have to have the answer, you just need to know what question to ask.
Yep.
And that's a big difference. Even with my 7-year-old daughter, she's asking Alexa all day, how to spell this, how to do that, right? But if she doesn't know how to ask the question, she's not going to get the answer. And it's the same with all of us, I believe.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. But the answer you get then is dependent on the people that train the machine.
Yes.
So who's training the machine? And is the bias in their heads in the answer that you get? So that's where this gets scary, right?
Yeah.
Jeffrey, anything to add?
Yes. Well, so I use generative AI for. Not that I'm a big proponent of it. I have trust issues with Gen AI. They say the hallucination's a feature, not a bug, but depends what you're using it for. If these companies that are trying to make hiring decisions, that's not what generative AI is for. Generative AI is useful, and the hallucination is a feature when it's used for creative pursuits. I've made some book covers, marketing materials with generative AI, and it's saved me time, but it's also cost me a lot of time too, because it's not that great. It can give you a good idea, right? But then you still got to edit, then you still got to get into Photoshop and clean it up. So I love that it's used for creative pursuits, and that's really where the value of generative AI is. There's other AI for more nuts and bolts stuff, and that's coming up. I'm excited about that. But the AI has just saved time for me, for sure.
Jeff, let me give you a funny a question. You ever get a mean email and you don't know how to reply? ChatGPT will help you.
Oh, yeah.
It gets the emotions out. It helps you to never send a nasty memo. You know that rule?
Yeah.
They can help you with that. It could be 1 a.m. You're talking to your wife, or you have something tough to talk about. How do I say this? It's amazing.
Yes, writer's block. Generative AI can help fight that. We just, how do I even start this? Or you're going to write something to a family member. It's very useful for that. But introducing it to your business, though, you've got to be real careful.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll just add on the ChatGPT. I never thought I would ever have to write into a syllabus for my students not to use GPT to compose their research papers. So I would just like to ask, we already asked how many business owners we have. How many parents are in this room? Look at that. I raised my hand, right? And how many have kids who are parents, obviously, who had their kindergartners starting to use an iPad? 10 years ago when we were growing up, the iPad didn't exist, right? And so we talk about this fourth industrial revolution, which I like to call the commanding heights of the new millennium. I think it's called the Trevor Project. They identify over 70 gender identities. So let me ask all the business owners here, are you ready to adopt policy? Or I'll ask the parents, are you ready to have play dates for 70 potential different gender identity kids?
I don't think, can we not?
Yeah.
No, but can we
I'm just saying it affects companies.
I know, but
It's a little off topic, but these are good points. These are passionate, these are subject matters. These are trends, right? And we actually have just about 10 minutes left. So what I'm going to ask each of you to do is give a quick closing about your perspective, how people could stay in touch with you, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. So we want to leave at least 5 minutes now for Q&A. So if you wouldn't mind, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll say two things really quickly. One is we talked about the generative nature of AI when we talked about questions, right? Appreciative inquiry, the traditional AI, OD-driven AI, is all about the questions that we ask. And so just like we need to be intelligent with the questions we're using with AI or ChatGPT, we can do really amazing things with the questions that we ask of our people, right? And so, think generatively the conversations you want to have and ask those types of questions. One final thing I'll say is I get to do a lot of work with teams, some pretty big teams and some pretty small teams. And the one time we were doing a brainstorming session, I thought, I'm just curious here. I'm going to type in the exact same questions, give the same context, the exact same questions that I was asking a group of people to brainstorm around. And here's what I'll tell you, the results told me. We will never have a technology that can replace what we as humans value. We will never be able to understand using technology what humans value as a group of people and what we have energy about. And so I think as leaders, when we move forward, if you can take one thing from anything I've said. It's how do you bring people together, ask questions to pull out what they value both individually and collectively. That's where imagination will be at its best. You can still use ChatGPT and other technologies to get the other things done.
Thanks, Jeff. Gary?
Yeah, and totally agree with Jeff. It's all about creativity and unleashing that. And I have a quote from Aristotle. Now think about how long ago that was. And he said, if machines did more of our work, everyone, even slaves, would be freer. I'll bet a lot of people feel like they're slaves to their companies and they're slaves to society and all that kind of stuff. And so this means freedom. And freedom translates into creativity. And so I would just say the water's warm. AI is going to be messy for a while, but that's when you want to get to know AI, when it's messy, so that you can have perspective on it 5 years from now, 2 years from now. And just start getting involved. Start with the simple things and let it just unleash that. There's inside is the inner child, and we don't ever let the inner child come out and play too much. And sometimes we overprotect that inner child. And ChatGPT and Midjourney and other AIs out there that are very fun and creative, just on a entertainment basis alone, just creating images in some of these generative AIs is just amazing, just to do for fun. And just start getting involved with it. And then your mind will do the rest, because you'll say, you know how I could apply this? Or do you know where this would work? And it might have to do with your business, or it might have to do with your grandson or granddaughter or your child. But you'll start finding ways to bring AI into your life as you both evolve.
Thank you.
Yeah, the slogan for my company, the Data Love Co., is where data meets heart, and it's really all about marrying together this technical aspect with the human aspect. And so I think that is really the path forward. I think there's a lot of fear right now that, by introducing more and more technology, we talked a lot about AI, but there's, blockchain and quantum computing and the Internet of Things and like all of this stuff, that is really shaping the future of our world. I think there's this fear that, we're going to lose some of like what makes us human, that creativity, that care, that empathy. And so really the reason I founded my company was to help companies with that, helping to ensure that you can still remain technologically savvy and on top of emerging technologies and data, but not lose that that what makes your business human and what makes you human. And I think that's really going to be a path forward. I was worried, personally, I was worried that with all of the emergence of these technologies, that companies were going to be like, ha, we don't have to worry about being humans anymore, and we're just going to lean fully into the technology. And I've seen a lot across a lot of industries, it's actually the opposite. Leaders want to leverage technology, but they don't necessarily want to lose what makes them special, lose what makes their business special. And I think that's going to be an important gap to fill.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
Yeah, the piece of advice that I can give is to just make sure that long-term strategic purpose is front and center on your mind. The short-term technology goes up and down. ChatGPT wasn't even here a year and a half ago, but your company was. And your company you want your company here 5, 10, 15 years. And it is researching and watching what's happening on the front, but still in the back with your company, your employees, is having them on your side, aware of the North Star of your company, where your company wants to go, and then how this new technology could possibly fit in. You've only got 24 hours a day. Leaders, we have to use our influence to make those 24 hours more impactful. And we do that by empowering our employees and giving them the freedom, like it was mentioned, to experiment, to play around with this technology to see where it can fit into your business. It's not trying to just jam generative AI into your business because everybody else is doing. It's looking at your business and seeing where are our pain points at, and then what possible solutions are, and potentially generative AI or another AI could step in for us.
Jeff?
And I'll shift in, we've been talking about some of the disruptive factors. There's a lot of positives, especially post-COVID. You look at remote learning and work. And later on, I think we have a keynote that's going to discuss the theme of work, life, and play. And post-COVID, surprisingly, has rebalanced that, especially for single parents who have to work. And I think it'll reduce unemployment overall through the country, because now you have people who can be employed with a company that traditionally couldn't have been employed with that company in different states, in different geographic areas. So there's a lot of positives. And I'm not being negative with like I mentioned, the DEI programs. I apologize for that. But it's a reality that our kids are growing up in a new generation. And they're growing up with technology that we did not grow up with. So you mentioned IoT, Internet of Things. A lot of positives. There's going to be smart cities by the time our kids are our age. Maybe they already are. And with my company specifically, we offer a service that's AI-enabled tax preparation. So in closing, it's not April 15th yet. So if you need to do your taxes, you don't want to miss out any of that code, we do use ChatGPT within the software to prepare those taxes. But overall, I just want to thank the CXO 2.0 conference and the leadership and the staff for having us. And we've kicked off this panel to start these next 3 days. I do want to foot stomp the roller coaster. So if you get a chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I love that green tie. It's amazing. Like St. Patrick's Day. So in closing for me, I'd just like to say, I created my company, Fourth Strategies, 25 years after nonstop corporate America, developing and implementing emerging business opportunities. And now I really want to help people use these technologies to create businesses that solve problems in their communities, right? I think if you continue to, each of you that have a business, you're solving problems. And I think you have to look at how you could leverage technology to solve that problem for more people, to have a bigger impact. It doesn't start with technology. It starts with you really understanding what problems you're solving, right? And then, based on how you answer that, there's a whole bunch of tools out there that you could use. So these disruptive technologies, we've only scratched the surface. There's even biotech. There's all kinds of amazing things that will allow us to solve problems that we couldn't even imagine even existed before. So in closing, and then we probably have a few questions, a few time for Q&A, but if you want to keep in touch with me, I'll be here. Also, I'd like you to let's continue this conversation, right? Let's continue to learn. So I help people break through barriers. It could be either mindset shifts, it could be actionable insights that you need to help your business grow. Actually, you could go to futuristceo.com. I got that one. And we could continue this conversation. So if you just go there and just punch in your email address, we could continue these conversations in the years to come. Does anyone have any questions to ask any of the panelists? Please, is that mic over there open? Yes, it's hot. So if you could just go back there, and then until they shut us down, we could do the Q&A.
Good morning. My name is Charles Hale with Hale Consulting Solutions. Excellent panel. Thank you guys so much. Part of what we do is a lot of project management work. I'm a project management professional, and one of the trends that we've seen kind of sputtering in that is the community developer, where you give the people in your team access to no-code tools, and they can develop their own solutions for their job. Seen some amazing things out of it, seen a lot of chaos out of it. Kind of want to get your guys' perspective on no-code and community development as a trend.
I mean, I'll start, and then Jazz, if anyone is. So I think no-code is amazing. I mean, when I started out in the 1990s, that was not even a possibility, right? But today, I think it allows us, it allows us to train even younger people and even older people, right? Myself, who may not be, I'm not coding anymore, but the access to these tools that allow you to create automations and workflows, build websites without actually having to write code. But what you have to really understand is, what are you building? Which means, what problem are you solving? And also, you have to be able to articulate your needs. We call that business requirements. A lot of people don't understand because things get lost in translation. So if you're going to equip a team of people to build a technology solution for you, you have to make sure that you're conveying and communicating your needs, because you're giving them the keys to building what you want. So really, I think it's your responsibility as the business owner to really make sure that you're communicating and articulating your needs properly with the people that are creating all these amazing solutions now that they don't have to actually write the code for it. So that's just my take.
I love it. There's this concept of open science, which is really all about, opening up the aperture for who we allow or who we say can be a part of these like technological solutions. And one of the key components of that is accessibility of the tools. And so, yeah, I want to get to more questions, but one thing I will say is that one of the most important things when it comes to opening up those kind of no-code solutions is that you still need to make sure that things are properly documented for repeatability. You said it, you get some really good things and you get some really chaotic things, but it's important to document both so that you can keep moving forward. So you're not continuing to make the same mistakes over and over again that are causing that chaos, unless you like it. You like it, I love it. But I think it really opens the aperture for allowing some of that creativity to come in, because you're not spending so much time coding, but making sure that you're properly documenting for repeatability or not repeatability is super important. But also, thank you for being a part of that, because I think it's also one of the paths to the future. Yeah.
Next question.
Awesome. So thank you. Amazing. I'm here to learn, and I'm learning from every single one of you. Megan Criley McKay, known as the Soft Interrogator, former Human Intelligence Specialist, Certified Interrogator Team.
Nice.
And I love what you're talking about. It's removing the bias from the top down, which I think is our struggle, because we only know what we know. And it's refusing to use what we see, but start asking open-ended questions because a mom has skills that belong 7 years on a resume gap. And it's how we identify those biases. And the question that I'm leading to is the conversation to create that creativity and let them have at it like mammals, but then give them constructive feedback. And how does that in your HR, which to me is no longer human,
Yes.
becoming human intelligence,
Yes.
knowledge, creativity, skills, irrelevant of age, gender, race, food type, or zip code? How are you developing that? And is that part of the conversation, is the question.
Wow.
You should have been up here.
I'll say one thing.
Would you like my chair?
Get this lady on a panel.
So let me try to tackle that a little bit, right? I think that in order for people to innovate, you do need parameters, right? You're trying to build a tree. You don't want somebody over there building a boat, which means you do need to put people in a box. They just shouldn't know and realize they're in a box.
And they can kick the door down?
And they can't kick the door down. So I think it's a matter of really having that shared vision and aiming at something that you all agree with, the problem you're solving, and then equipping the right skill sets, forming that team of people that are gonna complement each other. And then once you wind up that doll, let it go. But then check back in to make sure that they didn't go off building a boat, right? So that's just, I don't know if that makes sense, but go ahead, Jeff.
I'd love to chime in here. So I love the question, by the way. One of the things that we get called in often to do is organizations say, well, we need to build an org chart. We need to put people in these boxes. And most times those leaders have an idea of what they think is going to be in those boxes and the people. And before we'll go in, we'll say, are you willing to throw that apart? And are you willing just to be a participant in the room? And if the leader says no, we don't work with them. But if they do, what we'll do is we'll have a conversation first about strengths, about individual and collective strengths. Because I think what's most important, we need to have functional responsibility or accountability, which is a word I hate, but we shouldn't be managing for accountability. We should be managing for creativity. We need to have functional responsibility so people know who to go to say, hey, I need this. I know you should have it. But what we really need to be able to do as leaders is how frequently can we bring people together so they can self-identify their strengths in service of whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. And with the speed that things are changing today, that can't be once a quarter or once a year. It needs to be on a regular basis. And so I think if you can look at it as a leader, everybody as a leader in an organization, one of the companies, we have 7 companies that we've built up because we believe in entrepreneurs building other entrepreneurs. So people in our company start their own. And what we've seen with each of those organizations is that people have strengths and want to do things outside of a traditional boundary. You just need to let them do those things.
Let me add one point. We need to start younger. That's been kind of a common theme. And an example, I mentioned the Virginia Department of Education. We're updating standards of learning that haven't been updated since 2017, I believe. And I've proposed at least to go beyond just computer science and call it computer science and digital literacy. We're talking more about cybersecurity. You're seeing legislative bodies that are passing legislation to mandate cyber requirements for kids. But we also need to have those same types of certifications integrated with teacher certifications. And that's one of my products with Cyber Intelligent Partners, is cyber training for educators, not just the kids, but those who are actually putting together the curriculum. They also need to understand cyber, and not just technology. There's a history. There's a whole history and an evolution of cyber and cyberspace. We know that especially in the military. And now you have Space Force, right? And you have data engineers and chief data officers. Technology post-COVID has just taken off like wildfire. And we need to adapt to it. And we need to do some of those more actionable things. And as leaders, in using your company ownership and CEO leadership, we can really make that difference.
Thank you. Next. Oh, I think we're.
Panel, we're about 10 minutes over.
Okay.
So this is going to be the last question, and if you can kind of make it quick.
Thank you.
Oh, hopefully this isn't too long. I'm Jeff Cecil. I do business and leadership
Another
coaching.
Jeff.
Yes.
So here's the question I have. And we talked about lack of talent. A couple times I heard that come out. And my concern is with the disruptive technologies that are happening, do we see a bigger gap in lack of talent or a smaller gap for lack of talent?
Bigger.
Bigger in the short term, smaller in the long term. We've got to navigate the change curve.
And again, that goes to K through 12.
Yeah.
Where are these kids going when they're done with their middle school, high school, college? How are they being prepared for the new workforce?
Yeah,
And in the Gartner project or the report that I had highlighted, just for cybersecurity alone, by 2025, they're predicting that all the cybersecurity incidents that are happening will be because of untrained or unskilled workforce. Or you have people like a CISO in a company that's just being overworked and leaving. And there are other statistics from Gartner that say they're going to be leaving their jobs. And so who do you have left to protect those networks and those systems within a company?
Yeah,
One-
I was going to
And the
say,
human-centered approach is exactly what's needed.
yeah,
So the CFO needs to understand cyber.
I was just going to say something really quick. I know the CEOs I know are looking less at resumes and less at credentials and more about human potential. And they're finding ways to evaluate that, and they're hiring off of that. And then this gives them somebody who they can mold, but they have to provide the training after that.
Yeah.
So you need to get in front of that. You make sure you understand what kind of training you need. Then you go out and you find those bright souls. You throw the resume away and you bring those people and you train them, and they will be so grateful, and they'll be your employees forever, and you'll get great results.
Thank you, everyone. That was great. Really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.